I found out about the post on a Tuesday morning before the sun had even had a chance to warm the cold light spilling through my kitchen window. My phone buzzed with notifications, messages from people I hadn't heard from in months. Curious, I clicked open the first one and felt my stomach drop. There it was, a single post she'd shared with the world, a photo of us at a party, me, leaning in to speak to her, a gentle hand on her shoulder. She'd captioned it with a single cutting word, clingy. A few sentences followed half-truths and barbed jokes, all designed to paint me as someone who couldn't let go. She never knows when to give me space, she wrote. Always hovering, always needing. My hands shook as I scrolled through the comments. Laughing emojis, friends chiming in with their own horror stories about clingy partners. The words blurred, but the meaning was sharp and clear. She wasn't just talking about me. She was telling the world who she wanted me to be. For a long moment, I sat there frozen, the phone warm in my trembling hands. My heart pounded so loudly, I thought it might break. A dozen memories flickered through my mind, the quiet nights we spent on the couch, the long conversations that used to feel like lifelines. The way she used to say she loved how I listened, how I always showed up when she needed me. All of it rewritten in a few lines of careless cruelty. A message popped up on my screen, a friend asking, "Are you okay?" Saw what she posted? I didn't know how to answer. I wasn't okay. I felt like I'd been laid bare in front of everyone I knew, every piece of me I'd once trusted to her, now a punchline in someone else's joke. I wanted to call her to demand an explanation, to ask her how she could do this to me after everything we'd shared. But I didn't. I could already hear the excuses in my head. I was just joking. You're too sensitive. It wasn't a big deal. So instead, I set the phone down, my breath, coming in shallow, careful gulps. I stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the quiet street below. The world looked the same, soft morning light, a stray cat darting across the sidewalk. But everything felt different. Smaller. Colder. It was in that silence that I realized something I should have known long before. I didn't need her to tell me who I was. I didn't need her to validate my worth or to apologize for the way she'd twisted my kindness into a weapon. I had been enough all along, even if she had never seen it. And if she wanted to tell the world that I was clingy, well, she could. But I wouldn't let her define me anymore. I wouldn't let her words become the story I told myself when I closed my eyes at night. I turned from the window and started packing. It wasn't a decision made in anger. It was a quiet, deliberate choice. If she thought I was clinging to her, she would see just how completely I could let go. My hands were steady as I folded shirts, stacked books, gathered every piece of me she would never hold again. By the time the sun was fully up, I had made my choice. I wouldn't let her call me clingy and still live in the house I'd made a home. I would leave, and I would take the mortgage with me. I spent the next few days moving in quiet determination, every movement a small act of reclaiming my pride. I didn't tell her I was leaving. I didn't tell anyone, really. It felt like a secret I held close, something private and powerful in a world that had turned my name into a joke. I started in the bedroom, pulling clothes from drawers, folding them carefully into neat piles. I took my time, not because I was stalling, but because I wanted to remind myself of the life I was choosing to take with me. Each sweater, each scarf was another piece of me she didn't deserve to hold on to. The air in the room felt heavy, thick with memories I didn't want to carry anymore. I opened the closet and found the old shoebox, where I kept all the little mementos she'd once said she loved: ticket stubs from late-night movies, pressed flowers from walks we took together. I held them for a moment, feeling the echo of who we'd been. Then I closed the box and set it aside. Those memories belonged to a time that no longer fit. The kitchen was next. I wrapped each mug and plate in paper, my fingers moving steadily as I packed them away. The quiet clink of ceramic against cardboard was soothing, somehow a rhythm that matched the steady beat of my heart. I thought about how many meals I had cooked here, how many cups of tea I had poured for her when the nights were cold and long. I thought about how easily she'd turned those quiet acts of care into something to mock. In the corner of the kitchen, a stack of envelopes caught my eye. Bills, letters, mundane reminders of the life we'd built together. I picked them up and began to sort through them, and that's when I saw it, the mortgage papers, my name printed in bold at the top. I stared at them, the weight of it settling over me like a revelation. She had always acted like the house was hers, like I was just a guest in the life she'd built. But here in black and white was the truth. It was my name on the loan, my signature on every page. The house was mine, just as much as hers, no more than hers. She might have posted online that I was clingy, but the walls she called hers were held up by my steady hands. I sat down at the small kitchen table, the papers spread out in front of me. A slow smile crept across my face, not of victory, but of quiet certainty. She could laugh at me all she wanted online. She could tell the world whatever she liked, but she couldn't take this from me. I packed the mortgage papers with the rest of my things, sliding them into a folder with care. They were more than just a legal document, they were a testament to everything I had given to a home she never appreciated. By the time I was done, the apartment felt empty, but not in a way that hurt. It felt like a clean slate, a space ready for whatever I chose to build next. As I zipped the last suitcase closed, I looked around one final time. There was no sadness in me, no lingering doubt. Just the steady beat of my own heart telling me it was time to move on. When the morning I decided to leave finally came, I felt a calmness that surprised me. The apartment was quiet sunlight streaming through the thin curtains, as if the world itself was pausing to see what would happen next. I was almost done loading the last of my boxes into the car when she walked in. Her eyes went wide, her mouth opening in a small gasp. She looked at the half-empty shelves, the bare kitchen counters, and then at me. "You're really going," she said, her voice high and brittle. I straightened, meeting her gaze without flinching. "I'm done," I said simply. "I'm not staying somewhere. I'm not wanted." She blinked, her lips parting in disbelief. "You're overreacting. It was just a post, a stupid joke. You're really going to leave over that?" "It wasn't just a joke," I said, my voice calm but firm. "It was your way of telling the world who you think I am and who you think you are without me." She opened her mouth to protest, but I raised a hand. "Save it," I said. "I'm not here for another argument. I'm just here to get what's mine and to take back the mortgage I've been paying while you laughed at me behind my back." Her face went pale, her eyes flickering to the folder in my hand. "What are you talking about?" "This place isn't yours," I said softly. "Not really. You wanted everyone to think I was just some clingy shadow. But the truth is, I'm the one who made this house a home. I'm the one who signed the papers that keep it standing." She stepped forward, reaching out like she might grab the folder from my hands. "You can't just walk away and take everything with you. I've put years into this place, I know I said. But I've put in more than years. I put in trust. I put in love. And you turned all of that into a punchline." For a moment, she just stood there, her hands trembling at her sides. Then her face hardened, her jaw set in anger. "You'll regret this," she said quietly. "You'll see. You're nothing without me." I smiled, small and sure. "Maybe, but I'd rather be nothing than be someone who lets themselves be humiliated and still stays." I walked past her, then the weight of the mortgage papers solid and reassuring in my hand. She didn't stop me. She didn't call after me. She just stood there, her shoulders hunched, as I closed the door behind me. Outside, the air felt fresh and sharp, the sky impossibly blue. I loaded the last box into the car and took one final look at the apartment that had once felt like everything I wanted. Then I drove away, each mile between us a promise to myself I would never again let anyone decide what parts of me were worth keeping. My new place was nothing like the one I'd left behind. It was smaller, with paint on the walls that had seen better days and floors that creaked under my feet with every step. But it was mine. Every inch of it was a testament to the choice I had made to walk away from someone who called me clingy and to build a life that was mine alone, a life she could never touch. The first night there, I lay in bed and listened to the stillness. It was a different kind of quiet, no sharp words whispered in the dark, no carefully measured silences meant to keep me guessing. Just the gentle hum of the city outside and the steady beat of my own heart telling me I was exactly where I needed to be. I unpacked slowly, treating each box like a small ritual. My favorite books found new homes on the shelves, each one a reminder of who I was, before her words had tried to define me. The blankets I had once wrapped around her now folded at the end of my bed, waiting only for me. Every mug and plate, every soft towel, felt like an anchor in a life I was choosing for myself piece by piece. In the mornings, sunlight poured through the windows, spilling across the worn wooden floors, and making the entire place glow. I made coffee in a chipped mug, the steam curling around my face, and thought about how I had once tried so hard to make coffee just the way she liked it, always adjusting, always bending. Now it didn't matter if it was too strong or too sweet. It was mine, and that was enough. I spent my afternoons exploring the neighborhood. I found a tiny bakery tucked into the corner of an old brick building, the kind of place where the smell of fresh bread met you at the door and felt like a hug. I discovered a quiet park where the trees whispered in the wind, a place to sit and just breathe without feeling like I was taking up too much space. The nights were the hardest at first. There were moments when her voice still echoed in my head, telling me I was too much too needy. But each time I reminded myself those were her fears, not mine. Her smallness didn't have to be the measure of my worth anymore. I didn't have to carry her voice in my head like a burden. I found comfort in small routines. I lit candles in the evenings and let the soft light turn my walls gold. I cooked meals that filled the apartment with warmth and the smell of garlic and rosemary. I played music that made me feel like I could breathe again, songs about strength and starting over. I started to see myself differently too, not as someone who needed too much or asked for too much, but as someone who had always been willing to give. Someone who had learned to take up space in her own life, no longer waiting for permission or apology. She might have posted that I was clingy, that I didn't know how to let go. But here in this quiet home, I had claimed for myself, I was learning that letting go wasn't about weakness. It was about choosing yourself when someone else refuses to see you. It was about planting your feet in your own soil and knowing you didn't need anyone else to water your roots. In the quiet of my new home, I learned that love didn't mean clinging to someone who didn't want to be held. It meant showing up for yourself day after day, even when it was hard. It meant giving yourself the kindness you had once poured into someone else. And for the first time in a long time, I realized I didn't need her to see that. I didn't need her to understand or to agree. I just needed to know it for myself. And that was enough. I never thought I would hear from her again, but she reached out not long after I settled into my new home. Her name lit up on my phone screen late one evening, a small, insistent light in the dark. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, letting her words go unanswered, like the ones she'd once left hanging in the air. But something in me, some quiet strength I hadn't known I had made me pick up the call. Her voice was soft, hesitant. I've been thinking, she said, like she was searching for the right words, about the house, about everything. I didn't say anything, letting the silence stretch until she filled it with nervous laughter. I guess what I'm trying to say is, maybe we can figure out some kind of arrangement. You know, since you're the one holding the mortgage. I could almost hear her flinch at her own words. She had spent so long acting like she was the one with all the power, but now the truth was laid bare for both of us to see. My name was on the papers. My signature kept the roof over her head, and she knew it. I don't think that's going to happen, I said calmly. My voice didn't shake. I'm not interested in sharing a space with someone who turned my loyalty into a punchline. She sputtered, caught off guard by the finality in my tone. But I thought she began, but I cut her off gently. I thought a lot of things once, I said. I thought you loved me. I thought you respected me. But what I know now is that you can't treat someone like they're disposable and then ask them to help you keep what isn't yours. Her silence was almost deafening. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, could imagine her searching for some argument, some way to twist this back to the narrative she'd always tried to spin. But there was nothing left for her to say. I hope you figure it out, I said finally, my voice soft but resolute. But I'm done cleaning up the mess you made. My mortgage, my rules. You don't get to share in that anymore. I hung up before she could respond, setting the phone down on the small table by the window. Outside, the world was dark and quiet, the streetlights glowing softly against the night. I felt a calmness settle over me, a sense of finality that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with me. I made myself a cup of tea and stood by the window, watching the city move slowly beyond the glass. For so long, I had let her words define me, let her laughter shape the edges of my own story. But not anymore. She had called me clingy, had tried to turn my kindness into something to be ashamed of. But here, in this small, warm home that I had built for myself, I knew the truth. I wasn't clingy. I wasn't needy. I was strong enough to walk away from what didn't serve me, and brave enough to claim what did. I took a slow sip of my tea, letting the warmth fill me. My name was on the mortgage, and my heart was finally my own. She might still tell her stories to anyone who would listen, but they didn't matter anymore, because I had found something more important than her approval, the quiet certainty of who I was, and the life I had chosen to build for myself.